I was sitting in my car after work, a little after 2 a.m., just outside my apartment building. I usually go straight inside, but that night I stayed for a bit, just scrolling on my phone, putting off going up. The parking lot was mostly empty. A few cars spread out, nothing unusual. One of the lights near the back was flickering on and off. I didn't think much of it at the time. That light had been like that for a while. After a minute or two, I noticed someone walking between the rows of cars, not really heading anywhere, just moving slowly. At first, I thought he was just cutting through the lot, maybe heading to one of the buildings behind mine. I went back to my phone. Then I looked up again. He had stopped at one of the cars. He leaned slightly toward the window, like he was trying to see inside. Then he moved to the next one. Same thing. That's when I paid a bit more attention. It wasn't random. He was going from car to car in a straight line. I remember thinking maybe he lost something, or maybe he was looking for his own car and wasn't sure where he parked. It was probably nothing, or at least that's what I told myself. Still, I locked my doors, just quietly. He kept moving the same way, slow, steady, no hesitation. At some point, he turned into my row. I lowered my phone and leaned back slightly in my seat. Not all the way, just enough so my face wouldn't be clearly visible from the outside. He stopped at a car a few spaces away, looked inside, then the next one. Same thing again. By then, I wasn't really looking at my phone anymore. I was watching him. There was something off about the way he moved. Not nervous, not rushed, just very focused, like he already knew what he was doing. I remember thinking I should probably just get out and go inside, but I didn't. I just stayed there. He got closer, one car away, then the one right next to mine. He leaned in and looked through the window, stayed there a second longer than with the others. Then he stepped toward my car. I stopped moving completely. He walked up to the driver's side and looked straight in, not surprised, not confused, just looking, like he already knew I was there. I didn't react. I didn't look at him directly either. After a few seconds, he stepped back. Then he walked past my car. I watched him in the side mirror as he moved further down the row. What didn't make sense was that he didn't check the cars behind me. He just kept walking, straight toward the exit. I stayed in the car for a few seconds longer, then I started the engine. I don't really know why. I just didn't want to sit there anymore. As I pulled forward, I passed him near the exit. He was standing off to the side of the lot, not walking anymore, just standing there, looking at my car. I drove past him and out onto the street. Instead of parking again, I just kept driving. Did a slow loop around the block. When I came back, the lot was empty. No one there. I parked closer to the entrance this time, got out quickly, and went inside. I locked my apartment door behind me and didn't think about it much after that. It felt strange, but nothing had actually happened. The next morning, I went back down to my car. That's when I noticed something on the driver's side window. Smudges. At first, I thought it was just dirt, but when I looked closer, it looked like fingerprints. Not on the outside, on the inside of the glass. Like someone had pressed their hand against it from inside the car. I stood there for a while trying to make sense of it. I always lock my car, and I was the only one who had been in it. I still don't really have an explanation for that. I stopped at a gas station a little after 1 a.m. while driving back from visiting a friend. It was one of those places right off the highway, open all night. Not busy, but not completely empty either. There was one car parked near the entrance and another at a pump. I pulled in, parked at a free pump, and got out. It was colder than I expected. No wind, just that still kind of cold where everything feels quiet. While I started filling up, I noticed a guy at the other pump. He wasn't pumping gas. The nozzle was still in the holder. He was just standing next to his car looking toward the store. At first, I didn't think much of it. Maybe he had already finished and was about to go inside. But he didn't move, not even when I finished and put the nozzle back. I went inside to pay. There was a woman behind the counter, late 30s maybe, looked tired but alert, the kind of person who's used to working night shifts. I grabbed a drink from the fridge and walked up to the counter. As she scanned it, I noticed her glance past me toward the door. Not once, a few times. I didn't turn around yet. I just followed her eyes for a second. She kept her voice low when she spoke. "Pump number?" I told her. She rang it up. Then, without looking at me directly, she asked, "Do you know him?" I turned slightly and looked through the glass. The man was now standing right outside the entrance, not trying to come in, just standing there, looking through the door. "No," I said. She nodded once, still not making eye contact. "Okay." That was all she said. But her hand had moved under the counter. I couldn't see what she was doing, but she stayed like that for a second. I paid and picked up my drink. The man didn't move, still standing outside the door. I hesitated for a second. Then I walked toward the exit. As I got closer, I could see him more clearly. Mid-40s, maybe. Normal clothes. Nothing that stood out, except the way he was looking inside. Not scanning, not distracted, just focused. I opened the door and stepped out. He shifted slightly to the side, not enough to give space, just enough to adjust his position. I walked past him without saying anything. I could feel him watching me as I moved, not turning his head fully, just tracking me. I got back to my car, unlocked it, and got inside quickly. Locked the doors right away. As I started the engine, I looked back toward the store. He was still there, but now he was closer to the door, facing it directly, like he was about to go in. Inside, the woman was no longer standing upright. She was slightly crouched behind the counter, still holding something out of view. The man reached for the door handle, but he didn't open it. He just held it for a second, then let go. That didn't make sense. If he wanted to go in, he would have just opened it. I didn't wait any longer. I put the car in drive and pulled out. As I drove past the entrance, I checked the mirror. He was still standing there, same position, looking at the door, not moving. About a minute down the road, I realized something else. I had never seen his car leave, and I didn't remember which one was his. When I thought back, neither of the cars outside looked like they belonged to him. I guess I just assumed he had arrived in one of them, but I'm not sure anymore. I was walking a forest trail just before sunset, about a 20-minute drive outside of town. I'd been there once before, maybe a year earlier. It's one of those places people go to clear their head. Not completely remote, but quiet enough that you don't see many others. I parked near the entrance and started down the main path. There were a few cars in the lot, so I figured there were other people around. At first, everything felt normal, just the usual sounds. Wind through the trees, some birds, leaves under my shoes. I didn't think much of it. After about 10 minutes, the path split. I remembered going left last time, so I took the right path instead. It was narrower, less maintained, still clearly a trail, just not as used. I kept walking. That's when I started noticing the footprints. They were fresh, pressed deep into the dirt, going the same direction I was. At first I assumed someone had just passed through recently. That wasn't strange, but after a while I realized something. I hadn't passed anyone, and I hadn't heard anyone either. The trail wasn't wide enough to miss someone like that. I stopped for a second and listened. Nothing. No footsteps, no voices, just the trees. It was probably nothing, or at least that's what I told myself. I kept going. A few minutes later, I noticed something else. The footprints had changed direction. They weren't following the path anymore. They veered slightly off into the trees, like whoever made them had stepped off the trail. I slowed down a bit. I don't know why, but I didn't like that. I kept walking, but I stayed closer to the center of the path, trying not to look directly at where the prints disappeared. Then I heard something, a step, not behind me, off to the side, somewhere in the trees. I stopped again, listened, nothing. A few seconds passed, then another step. Same direction, not loud but clear enough that it wasn't just branches or wind. I remember thinking it was probably another hiker, maybe someone walking parallel to the trail. That made sense. At least it did for a moment. I started walking again, a little faster this time. The steps matched. Not exactly in sync, but close enough. Every few seconds I'd hear it. Off to the side, moving with me. I didn't look. I just kept going. Then the path curved slightly, and for a brief moment I could see into the trees at an angle. I didn't see anyone, but I saw movement. Something shifting behind the trees. I stopped completely. The sound stopped too. That part didn't make sense. If it was another person, they would have kept moving. I stood there for a few seconds. Then I turned around and started walking back the way I came. The steps came back almost immediately. Still off to the side, still matches my pace. That's when I stopped again and said, "Hey," just loud enough to carry. No response, nothing. I didn't wait. I started walking faster, then faster again. The steps kept up, not running, just keeping pace. When I finally reached the split in the trail, the sound stopped. Completely. Like it had never been there. I didn't slow down after that. I went straight back to the parking lot. There were still a few cars there, same as before, but no people. I got into my car and locked the doors. Sat there for a minute, just listening. Nothing followed me out. Nothing came out of the trees. Before I left, I looked back toward the trail entrance. The path was empty, but just inside the tree line, I could see the footprints again, leading out from the trees, not away from the trail, toward it. I still don't go there anymore.